The Pacers get a huge bounce back statement win over the Utah Jazz in Utah. Team performance, Kelan Martin stepping up. McConnell was excellent. Brogdon was excellent. Turner was excellent. And a little fight, and the 76ers are coming this weekend. My gosh, so much happened today. So much is coming. Lots to get to on today's Locked On Pacers podcast.
You are Locked On Pacers, your daily Indiana Pacers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome in to another edition of the Locked On Pacers podcast, where we, of course, talk about the Indiana Pacers as always. My name's Tony East. I cover the team for Forbes and the West Side Community News. And today we are talking about a Pacers win in Utah. Huge win by the Pacers over the Utah Jazz, handing the Jazz their first loss in Salt Lake City of the season. A lot of guys stepped up. We got to give some flowers to a lot of guys for their big performances and talk about what happened kind of at the end of the game. Myles Turner and Rudy Gobert getting into a little scuffle. Lots of ejections, 4 guys ejected. And then the 76ers are in Indy this weekend. Who knows who's going to be playing for them? But still important game for the Pacers to try to build off this momentum they got in Utah. Beat 2 good teams in a row. Could have been 3. So, look, the big summary is the Pacers beat the Jazz 111-100. The Jazz are really good. They were 8-3, I believe, 8-4 coming into this game. They had not lost at home. The Pacers made that not the case anymore. And it's games like this that make games like the Nuggets game so frustrating for fans, because the Pacers show that when they're clicking and flowing and they have and they just execute a game plan, they can win against good teams even without key guys playing. The Pacers played pretty well. Obviously, they beat a really good team, especially defensively, but they didn't play like amazing. They only got 19 free throw attempts up. They shot under 75% there. They only shot 35% from deep, right? They dominated the glass, so I guess that's where they were really good, and they were low in turnovers, but they weren't like amazing, but they were so good on D and connected the whole game that they looked awesome, and it makes those Nuggets losses really frustrating. But flush that Nuggets one and focus on this one for now, because the Pacers looked fantastic for long stretches of this game. They looked really good on defense. They held Donovan Mitchell to, I guess Donovan Mitchell was pretty good, but it didn't seem like he was incredible, and he didn't really take over the game that much. They held every other Jazz starter who was, the non-superstar tier of guy to a really off night. Mike Conley only hit 2 buckets all night. Royce O'Neal only hit 1. Bojan Bogdanovic, former Pacer, only hit 3. Joe Ingles off the bench only hit 3. Jordan Clarkson was 3 for 14. A lot of these guys that normally help support Donovan and Mitchell and Rudy Gobert's big games were really off because of the Pacers defense. They were rotating really well. They were covering their gaps. They were Xing out. They were, every time Mitchell gave it up, it felt like they were all over him. So the Pacers did a really good job with that. And the Jazz, like I talked about yesterday, they try to have fewer passes on possessions now. It's kind of a newer thing for them. And the Pacers were ready for it. They were all over that plan and that scheme, and they played fantastic defense for long stretches of this game that made things really tough for the Jazz, who get up a ton of threes normally, nearly 40 a game or over 40 a game. They only took 32. They hit 28% of them. So lots of credit to the Pacers on defense in this game specifically. That's really what made it happen, is the Jazz could never go on a run, right? I thought before the fourth quarter, the Pacers entered the fourth up by 8, and the Jazz, because they shoot so well and they have such a dynamic offense when Mitchell's in the game, no lead is safe against them. They can make a 14-point lead disappear immediately, right? So the Pacers defense had to be clicking to really keep up, and they did a really good job of never conceding a huge run. They had one kind of stinker run in the third, but that's it. Their defense was fantastic all night. They made guys uncomfortable, and when Mitchell was out of the game, the Jazz just didn't have a lot going on. So really impressive for the Pacers defensively in general. I think that was the story, if you want to talk about where they excelled in this game, is they really slowed the Jazz. Myles Turner, fantastic on defense, 3 blocks in this one, moved up to 5th on the franchise's all-time blocks list, which was really cool. With Turner in the game, Pacers won by 11. They win the game by 11. You do the math there. I think it's clear what kind of impact he was able to have in this game. So his defense was, of course, special. Sabonis had some good defensive moments when he was in as the lone center. Obviously, a lot of bench guys had good defensive games on guys like Bojan and Jordan Clarkson. We saw Justin Holiday play solid defense all night. Torrey Craig played good defense. Keelan Martin, who we'll talk about at length later in the show, also played good defense. So just in general, a very impressive performance from a lot of guys on that end of the floor that guided this team to a win. But the offensive end wasn't just like something to write off. The Pacers scored 111 against the Jazz, who have the 3-time Defensive Player of the Year, Rudy Gobert, anchoring their team, and the Pacers were still able to get up good looks. They only shot about an average field goal percentage in general, but the low turnovers made their offense look really effective all night in a way that it hasn't against the Jazz in past seasons. Myles Turner had 13 points on only 7 shots. Malcolm Brogdon had 30. He was unbelievable, mostly because Brogdon was able to get to the line. His drives were really, really good in this game. He was absolutely cooking Mike Conley. I love Mike Conley, love the Indy native, but Brogdon just cooked him all night. He was getting to the rim and drawing those fouls and making it happen in a way that really bent the defense. His passing was really good too, only 4 assists, but just was setting up a lot of stuff. So he was excellent. Any 30-point game is going to be an excellent performance. And then McConnell continues. This is easily the best scoring stretch McConnell has ever had as a Pacer. I mean, undeniably so. Another 20-point game for him. He was 10 of 14 from the field. And it's not really rocket science to me. Like, he went back to the stuff he's good at. He took a few threes. I think he took 2 in this game. He took 1. He nailed it. But he took more. He was like playing spread more early in the season, and he didn't look comfortable. He didn't fit. And then he went back to playing the way TJ McConnell plays well, even within Rick's system. And it's Rick Carlisle's system, and it's really working for him. He's getting to the basket and finding places and creases to score. And I talked about this on a podcast earlier this week, but I think it was after the Kings game. I asked Myles Turner about TJ McConnell, and he said something that really was interesting to me, and it's that when McConnell has the ball, a lot of times the defense is waiting on and expecting the pass, and so he's got a lot of one-on-one chances to score, and when he's able to find his crevices and blow by guys to get to those spots, it's easy for him, and he's had a bunch of good games in a row where that's the case, and making LeVert's absence unfelt when they have another guard who can be a self-creator and a good passer. He led the team in assists with 5 again tonight, tied with Sabonis, I suppose. So those 3 were really excellent offensively. And then, Duarte had 11. He struggled for a lot of the game, but really picked it up in the fourth quarter when they needed him. Keelan Martin had 14. He hit 2 threes, right? So a lot of guys still stepped up to the plate in big moments. And the other interesting thing about the Pacers in this game offensively, despite their stats, none of them jumping off the page. This is something I tweeted about during the game, is like every time they needed a bucket, right? The Jazz were on a run. They were right there. The Jazz are about to come back and potentially take the lead. The Pacers hit a huge shot, right? The Jazz got it under 5 once in the second half. Immediately, the Pacers bury a 3. I believe that was a Keelan Martin jumper. Or in the first half, the Jazz, after the Pacers took the lead for the last time, which was in the middle of the second quarter, by the way, they never looked back. The Jazz got it down to 1. Didn't matter. Pacers score on the other end right away, right? The Pacers did a very good job of weathering the Jazz storms, sticking with it, getting good quality looks. And that was a big reason they were able to stay ahead and have a good game. And then at the end, the craziness happened that I can't believe I've made it 8 minutes of talking without talking about the kerfuffle, I don't even know what the right word is, the sequence that resulted in 4 ejections. I mean, if the Jokic Morris fight earlier this week didn't happen, this would have been probably a bigger deal because this looked pale in comparison to that. But so Myles Turner blocks Rudy Gobert at the rim, and he says, "Give me that shit," on the block. And then Rudy Gobert, falling to the ground, grabs Myles Turner's shorts and yanks him down with him. Myles Turner, after the game, said he thought that was such an obvious foul. He couldn't believe it was uncalled. And on the replay review of Turner getting pulled down, he pops up and he's immediately yelling at the ref like, "Hey, how did you not just see that? He pulled me down." So Turner gives Gobert a shove in retaliation to being pulled down. Gobert obviously comes back at him. They're jawing. They get separated. And then while they're getting separated, all the other players are coming to the defense of their teammates. And Joe Ingles, especially so, and Donovan Mitchell slightly apparently, bump into one of the referees. I think it was Ed Malloy. And so after all that, because there was contact with refs for those 2 guys and double techs on Gobert and Turner, and Gobert already had a tech, and then Turner got a flagrant 2, I think. It was very confusing, but all 4 of the names I just said were ejected from the game at that time. I don't think anyone except for guys who touched refs could get suspended. I don't think anyone will. Nothing was super awful in the moment. You have the flagrant 2 to be the punishment for a situation like this in general, and nothing crazy malicious happened. There wasn't punches thrown or anything like that. So I don't think there will be any suspensions from this, but it was really wild to see. And it was the most we've seen Turner maybe in his whole career really like dog bark at a guy like Rudy Gobert in a situation like that. It was awesome to see. And Turner was clearly right. He got pulled to the ground. You never like to see retaliation But it was like the same thing with Morris and Jokic. You don't want to see retaliate. You want to see like some comeback from the guy who gets not cheap shotted, but gets the initial effort thrown their way, but maybe not in the way that Jokic and Turner did it, where they retaliate. But something, something to that ilk. So there was 4 minutes left when that happened. The Pacers were up 13 at the time, or maybe 11, and then they scored right away to go up 13. So it didn't matter. They were going to win anyway, and they were comfortably leading, like I said, for much of the second half, thanks to some timely shot making. But it was a very interesting sequence, and lots of ejections. Pacers cruised the rest of the way since all the Jazz best players were now in the locker room, as was Turner. So I'm sure you can find video of it online if you haven't seen it yet. It was a fascinating sequence, and I don't think anyone was don't pull someone down if you're Rudy Gobert. But after that point, I don't think anyone did anything crazy, malicious, or anything wrong. So I don't think there'll be any suspensions, but we'll see what happens. Certainly something to monitor in the coming days to see what happens. Based on the comments after the game from both players, no one really thought a fight was coming, but both guys were mad about just general officiating stuff and what had happened during the game. So we'll see what comes of it. Fascinating moment. And yeah, that was it. So let's talk about some guys who really stepped up in this game and see if that can continue going forward, especially Keelan Martin, who really, it seems like, has the trust of Rick Carlisle in a way that I never expected to happen this season, but he is clearly proving Rick Carlisle right. So let's do that. But first, let's talk about the good folks over at McDonald's, because McDonald's has always been more than just a place to get tasty, affordable food. It's a place where friends and family can come to reconnect, a place where classmates can meet up for a study group knowing they'll have dependable Wi-Fi, fries, and McFlurries. Win or lose, it's a place where teammates, competitors, the home team, the away team, Gobert and Turner can come to recharge, and it's the place you can look forward to stopping on your long road trip to rest your legs and refuel. I always used to go there when I was younger with my parents, so some positive experiences for me there. Maybe you can have some in the future. Head over to your local McDonald's, refuel, reconnect. Ba-da-ba-ba-ba. McDonald's, I'm loving it. And let's also talk about the good folks over at BetOnline.ag, who are back and better than ever. They've got a new web interface for the start of the basketball season. More props, more odds and lines than ever before. BetOnline remains your number one spot for all the basketball and football action this season. Head over to their new updated desktop or mobile website to sign up today and receive your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Just use the promo code LOCKEDON when you sign up to receive that 50% welcome bonus. Basketball and football on there, NHL, boxing, UFC, your favorite Vegas casino games. They've got it all. Don't wait to take advantage of all the amazing offers available for the 2021 season. BetOnline is the fastest and easiest way to bet on all your favorite sports. BetOnline, where the game starts. So lots of guys were great in this game. I'll talk about all of them. I mentioned some of the box score stats from in the first segment, but a guy I want to give his flowers to, because I haven't talked about him hardly on this show recently, besides his contract situation, is Kelan Martin. I mean, look, Kelan Martin had some moments last year where he was great. The 25-point game in Cleveland, the 3-3-pointers he had in San Antonio. Pacers won both of those games because he really stepped up. But for much of the season before, like mid-April, he didn't provide the Pacers much. So, I didn't think that Carlisle would be immediately sticking him in the rotation the second he's healthy. The first active game, Keelan was back. He played 13 minutes. So maybe that should have been a sign. He scored 8 points in that game. And since then, he's continued to get steady minutes. He's played in every game since he returned from injury. Got almost 13 minutes in the game in Portland, scored 8 points in that one, played 19 minutes in Denver. And then today against Utah, Keelan Martin plays 20 minutes, hits 2 threes, takes 13 shots. He might have been a little too aggressive with the shooting at times in this game, but clearly has a role in Carlisle's offense and has Carlisle's trust because he's playing a ton. He's getting good shots. And the thing that's making it interesting is the way he's scoring and shooting. The Pacers clearly are trusting him in a way that wasn't the case last year. Last year, Keelan Martin was mostly a catch and shoot, or you were in transition. Here you go, go make something happen kind of guy, or a one dribble after a shot fake or something. And those shots are good for him. There's a reason he had some high scoring outings last night. But right now, I mean, he's dribbling around screens and taking some pull up jumpers and floaters that. Stuff that Keelan Martin was not taking last year for sure. And so it was very impressive to see him add to his arsenal of shooting so quickly. And 14 points doesn't just happen. You have to have trust from your teammates to even take 13 shots. And that might be a little too many for a guy like him, but he also provides good defense. And I think that's something that Carlisle mentioned after the game being valuable. That stood out to me as he said, yeah, I like Keelan's defense and his toughness. I think he said when I asked about Keelan something like, if I was in a fight, I think I would want Keelan on my side or in my corner or something like that. I don't remember the exact quote, but he just likes his mentality and his attitude in the game in those kind of settings. And I think we've kind of learned pretty early this season that Carlisle, with his second unit guys, he likes guys that can defend, or he'll favor them in situations of substitution patterns, right? Like Jeremy Lamb played under 10 minutes again. He's come back for 3 games now and still continues to get fewer minutes than Keelan Martin and Torrey Craig and guys like that. So I think he favors defense with his bench guys, and if he likes Keelan's defense and Keelan can continue to give the Pacers good offense, I think Martin could play a lot more going forward. And if Rick trusts him, like if he plays like he did in the last couple games or a few times since he's returned, like him and Jeremy Lamb have close impacts in general. Like Lamb obviously is the more reliable offensive player who you trust more with the ball. He doesn't need a screen to score in the way that Martin does, but his defense is certainly way worse in a way that if Martin really is useful on offense and a valuable spot up shooter, right? Like he hit half his threes again in this game. Maybe you do look to have him be your backup too in the absence of with the injuries they have right now. That is. So he was very impressive in this game on both ends. Rick Carlisle agreed. That's why he played 20 minutes in this game. I think he played the 5th most minutes of anyone on the Pacers, maybe 6th. So full credit to him. He has seized an opportunity that Rick Carlisle is giving him. He might continue to get minutes going forward. I would assume he'll be in there. Well, when Karras comes back on Saturday, I think we'll learn a little more about how Carlisle values him, because I'm sure, Craig has kind of cemented a spot with his defense. So McConnell's going to be coming off the bench, and Craig probably will too. But after that, nothing is set in stone. So perhaps we'll see Rick Carlisle's decisions with Keelan and Jeremy and even O'Shea, who played against Denver, going forward. And then McConnell, TJ McConnell has always been wonderful when he's rolling. And he, right after he had his child last year, he was really good for a stretch. But this is the best scoring stretch I think he's ever had as a Pacer. 19 in Portland, this road trip just in general. 19 in Portland on 61.5% shooting. 18 in Sacramento on the same 61.5% shooting. 16 in Denver on 72.7% shooting. And then tonight in Utah, 10 for 14. So again, 71.4%, 21 points. So he is just on fire recently. He's at, if I can do quick math, 74 points in the last 4 Pacers games. So over 18 points per game for TJ McConnell in these last 4 games. And look, I don't want to say that like he's a reliable double-digit scorer every game, and this is something they can expect from every night. But he also had 9 assists against Denver. He led the team in assists in this game. Like he has certainly very quickly found a way to find crevices in the defense and set up his Pacers teammates in a way that he could not do early in the season. He has been, they've been playing much better basically since they played the Spurs at home 2 Mondays ago. If they didn't have slow starts against Portland and Denver, like they might be undefeated in the stretch since they played the Spurs. Like they've been playing pretty good despite some ugly losses in that time frame. And McConnell's resurgence and like finally fitting in with a new system and new team, which is something I talked about a few times on this show. It takes him a few games to do that every season, has been huge for this team's turnaround. Their second unit finally looks like it's gelling. He can play with the starters just fine. And now that he's creating his own shot, it's like, wow, this guy needs to play a lot if he can be that guy who can get into the paint and find a way to score on top of being a really good setup guy who knows how to throw his teammates open and be a valuable part of the offense. So his run that he's on right now is just ridiculous. I'd have to look back at the last 2 seasons in a little more detail to officially know, but I can't think of a time where he even had 3 games in it. Okay, so here's a stretch where he had 4 games in a row in double figures, but the highest one was 16 points, which he's outdone every time. So I think last year he never scored 4 games in a row in double figures, and then 2 seasons ago he was certainly a lesser scorer that season, his first season with the Pacers under McMillan. I highly doubt, he did it that year. He did not. So this is his first time as a Pacers scoring in double figures 4 games in a row. So clearly having more of a scoring impact on offense, really making things happen for this team in a way that has really elevated them. And then, if Brogdon gives you 30, great. That he's got the potential to do it all the time because he's a good shooter. And I think that the reason I wanted to highlight Brogdon here and Turner, I want to get to him as well. But the reason I wanted to highlight Brogdon here is something that is standing out about him early in the season is he's like getting by guys better on drives, I think, than in years past. I always talked about how he was good at getting a half step on guys, but not enough that he could have an easy finish. He had to make them harder sometimes. But this year he's either getting a little more of a step on his matchup, or he goes to a reverse layup in that instance and uses the rim as a way to prevent being blocked and make his layup easier. And he's scoring very well and very efficiently this season. He continued to do that tonight. Still a good setup man for his teammates, but something about the way Rick Carlisle wants to play works well for Brogdon scoring. And in games where he's hitting his threes a little bit or he's drawing fouls, he'll be really good, I think, for the Pacers a lot this season. And in this game, he didn't even shoot that well from three, and he still was able to get up 30. So if he was 3 for 7 or 4 for 7 from deep, he almost would have gotten 40. I think his career high is only 35. He was very close to exceeding that. Maybe that's his Pacer high. I can't remember. I looked something up during the game. His career high is 36. Yes, that's correct. And that is his Pacers high as well. So he continues to be wonderful this season on a scoring front. Shrep kind of ruined how many games he could play and how much impact he could have. That's what he missed games with this weekend. But Rick Carlisle said after today's game that this morning, Thursday morning, that is, before the Jazz game at their morning meeting, was the best Brogdon has looked physically, sans sickness, since he actually got it this past weekend. He even looked pretty rough in Denver, he said that morning. So he's healing and he should be good to go going forward. He also said Karis LeVert, he's hopeful can be back against Philly. That doesn't mean he will be, but he's hopeful. So we'll see what happens there. And then Myles Turner just continues to be unbelievably good on defense this season. He's leading the league in blocks. Malcolm Brogdon said after the game, I love that we have the best defender in the league on our team, and the second best defender in leagues on the other team, right? So clearly he's calling Turner better than Gobert straight up after the game. I thought that was fascinating comments from Malcolm Brogdon after the game. I personally think Gobert's the better defender, but Myles certainly looked the part of Brogdon's case in this game. I mean, the 3 blocks were great. He was deterring shots in the way that he has been doing all season. Blocking bigs, that's kind of new for him, right? He's always been good at getting those guards coming around screens or taking ill-advised drives at him. But tonight he blocked Whiteside on a lob and he blocked Gobert on a layup or dunk attempt. He was really showing some force and impact around the rim. And again, he continues to just be a little bit better on the glass, 9 rebounds. He's actually doing more than boxing out and actually going and getting them. So combine that with 5 for 7 from the field, hitting 3 3-pointers. Yeah, that's the quintessential Myles Turner good game. He was very good. He was a big part of this Pacers win. So those 4 guys, I think, had put their stamp on this game in a way that was noteworthy, was story-worthy, was worthy of a little more praise. Goga Batadze played really good defense in his 6 minutes and hit a shot. He had 4 fouls in 6 minutes. He was kind of clubbing, but he was really active in slowing down the Jazz. And the Pacers had some crazy foul trouble in the first half. Sabonis ended up fouling out of this game with his 6 fouls. So they had to turn to Goga at times, and they won his minutes. They needed that in the second quarter. Without that, who knows how this game could have gone. So lots of guys stepped up in ways that allowed the Pacers to get a huge, huge win to get some momentum. In Philly this weekend could potentially be without Embiid. So we could see the Pacers get 2 wins that, if you looked at their schedule before the season and thought of the fully healthy Pacers, you would not have expected them to win those games. So let's talk about this Philly game, a game that comes this weekend. Should be a tough one still. The Pacers lost to Philly without Embiid last year, but let's just talk about it instead of me ruining it all right now. But first, it's Locked On Pacers, guys. I got to talk to you and tell you about the company making the best tasting protein bars ever, and that is Built Bar, because Built Bar makes 100% covered in chocolate, soft and easy to chew protein bars that are great for the health conscious guy, and they are great around the holidays. It's the perfect time for Built Bars right now with Thanksgiving coming up. Instead of eating a slice of pie with 300 or more calories on the low end, Built Bars are only 130 calories, only 4 grams of sugar, tons of protein, and just as flavorful, right? You can get your coconut cream pies, replace that with coconut Built Bar. Raspberry Built Bar instead of raspberry pie. They got lots of flavors that are pie adjacent at Built.com. You got to go check them out. They're all 100% covered in chocolate. They're all delicious. Good meal substitute, good snack, however you want to do it. And they're going to have tons of new flavors this month up on their website. They'll have a Black Friday deal coming up, so be sure to checking out their website. Go to Built.com and use the promo code LOCKED15 when you check out. You'll get 15% off your order. That promo code again is LOCKED15 for 15% off at Built.com. Pacers, Sixers tonight, and I want to say, yes, no Joel Embiid, no Ben Simmons. Pacers should win. However, last year, the Pacers played without the Embiid-less Sixers and lost once at home, and then they played them again really late in the season when it wasn't sure if they were going to make the play-ins, and then they had this crazy fourth quarter comeback that ended up sealing their play-in spot. All the games last year between the Sixers and Pacers were wild and crazy and made no sense. And typically, you look at the Sixers on the Pacers schedule and you just, here we go. Embiid versus Turner. Embiid's going to kick his butt, going to get him 3 fouls in the first minute, and the Sixers are going to win. And that has been the story of this matchup for the last while. However, unfortunately for me, because I love watching Joel Embiid, it doesn't sound like Embiid's going to play. He is in the COVID-19 health and safety protocols, which could cause him to miss up to 10 days. I think if he returns 2 negative tests in 24 hours, he's able to return in that time frame, unless he actually has COVID. I don't know how those rules work, but I think he's expected to miss 10 days, or was at the time he entered the protocols, which was earlier this week. So it doesn't sound like he's going to play. The Sixers have had COVID issues going through their team recently. They just had Tobias Harris miss games for it as well. So they're really banged up. If Embiid can't go, they won't have Embiid. They won't have Simmons. They'll have a recently returning Tobias Harris. Matisse Thybulle's in health and safety protocols. Isaiah Joe's in health and safety protocols. And Seth Curry has a foot injury, right? So a lot of their really good players have been out, and that's been hurting them after a very strong start. They were 8-2. They've lost their last 2 games. They lost to Milwaukee, who's good, and New York, who is good. It's not like they're bad losses. They played Toronto tonight, and I believe Toronto beat them on a late shot from Fred VanVleet. So 3 straight losses for the Sixers without their studs. Their vibes are looking low. Good opportunity for the Pacers to get not only a win over the Sixers, but this win, when you walked through the Pacers schedule before the season, this stretch of at Denver, at Utah, home for Philly, at New York is tough. And their early season schedule is really tough. And now they have an opportunity to steal a win against a team that on the schedule, on paper, they wouldn't have before the season started. It's kind of important that the Pacers get this game given how their schedule is this season. So it's hard to preview this game because who knows who's going to play for the other team. I mean, Tobias Harris has been very good this season when he does play. Prior to this Toronto game that the Sixers just played, Tobias Harris averaging 20 points per game on 54% shooting from the field, 9 rebounds as well. So he's been really, really, really good for them in multiple areas. So he's still a threat, and he fits the profile of something I just wrote about, those big, kind of stronger wings. The Pacers really have not been able to match up with those guys. So it could be an important Torrey Craig game. Could be an important Keelan Martin game. Again, anyone who can match up size on him and slow him down in ways that they don't have good matchups for will be valuable in this game. But in the absence of Simmons and, again, a hobbled Seth Curry maybe returns, and that could really rejuvenate the Sixers. But in the absence of Simmons, the Sixers have been relying on Shake Milton and Tyrese Maxey to be point guards a lot, and those guys are good, but they are more scorers than setup men. So I think the Pacers in this game, they can force some turnovers, and that can be where they get an advantage in this game. Sixers do not turn the ball over very often. They're second in the league, actually, in fewest turnovers per game. So if the Pacers can force some turnovers out of those guys who are score-first guards, not that they're bad passers or they cough it up often, but just those are guys that they aren't known for setting up their teammates as well. Putting more pressure on them, making them give it up could be tough. The Sixers also last in the league in rebounds per game. That's something that the Pacers have gotten better at this season from last season. It's going to be paramount, especially with Embiid out, that the Pacers are cleaning up misses from the Sixers. And another thing about the Sixers, prior to this Raptors game, first in the league in three-point percentage. If that comes back to earth a little bit, perhaps their hot start doesn't look so strong. So got to be closing out the shooters when the passes do come out. Try to force some turnovers from some headstrong guys like Furkan Korkmaz has killed the Pacers from deep for forever. Tobias Harris can go off at any time. Seth Curry, if he plays, can hit threes. Georges Niang, former Pacer, hitting 40% of over 6 3-point attempts per game this season. Danny Green as well. They have a lot of shooters, right? So it's going to be important to stay home on those guys, make their life really tough. Play defense like the Pacers just did against the Jazz. They did a very good job of shutting down those shooters, stopping the ball, making passes awkward or out of rhythm. Those kind of things are going to be key against the Sixers team. And look, even I talked about Embiid and how the Pacers have a really big opportunity because it's not Turner versus Embiid. They have a way better chance in the matchup that is now the case. However, that new matchup is Andre Drummond, who also has a history of playing very well against Myles Turner. Drummond playing pretty well this season, actually, shooting over 50% from the field, dominating the glass, 11 per game. He's been one of their only reliable rebounders in the absence of a lot of their vets, which is a reason that the Sixers are last in rebounding. So very important. They'll probably end up putting Sabonis on him, I would imagine. Although I don't know what Rick Carlisle will think, but depending on who the Sixers start, I could see a game or a game plan that involves Sabonis guarding Drummond or on Drummond to start this game, and then let Turner roam a little bit. You're losing his shot blocking, but I think you're gaining more in the aggregate of defense and rebounding in that way. So we'll see how Carlisle does it. But the Sixers, it's hard to preview what they can be because they could have a few key guys in, they could have a few key guys out, and if they don't have Seth Curry, I think that I would favor the Pacers kind of tremendously in this game, which is weird to say, but that means they'll be missing out on their best shooter and their best post presence. Still no Ben Simmons. They have guys who can score off the dribble still, Tobias Harris, Tyrese Maxey, right? And they have shooters still, but they're all limited or inconsistent in ways that the Pacers can still get advantages. And maybe LeVert comes back, and if the Pacers do have 4 starters at the same time, that's been a recipe for success for them this season. So this could be a chance for the Pacers to get 2 wins in a row against teams that on paper are good, despite having some injury issues in Philly. And the Pacers need to win, even if they're depleted after the Denver game. The Pacers need to, don't play to your level of your competition. We've seen this team not do that. They smoked the Spurs, they smoked the Knicks, even the Jazz. They didn't play to the level of the Jazz. They were better the whole game. They got to do that against this Philly team, regardless of who's playing. Play their game, play the game they've been playing, have guys play to their strengths. And I think they can win. And it'd be huge for them to get this one home win in their stretch of, 7 of 8 on the road. To get a win against a team that is near the top of the Eastern Conference would be huge. I think they can do it, given the injuries and health and safety protocol situations in Philly, but they have to actually do it. The Denver game does not give anyone confidence that the Pacers can do it, but again, they should do it. So Monday, I will be breaking down that game, obviously, maybe a guest for that one, and looking ahead at the Knicks game the Pacers will be having that Monday. You can look back at the last Knicks game, see what the Pacers can do better and worse. So stay tuned for that. Hope everybody's doing well. Hope everybody's staying safe. Have a great weekend, and we will see you on Monday.